One of the keys to a healthy relationship is how a couple handles difficult conversations. In 27 years of marriage, my wife and I have had our fair share of difficult conversations, and honestly, I can say I've handled a lot of those poorly. Yeah, my emotions get involved, my pride gets in the way, my insecurities get exposed, and then the conversation goes sideways and we've lost what we're trying to accomplish. Maybe you can relate to that. So I've discovered that a difficult conversation is not only about what you do in the conversation, but how you prepare for the conversation beforehand. So in this video, I want to give you 8 tips for handling difficult conversations. That's today on Relation Shots. Welcome to Relation Shots. If this is your first time hanging out with us, welcome to the place to get practical relationship advice that actually works in your relationship. If you want a free guide to intimacy, hit the link in the description area below. If you're looking for a place to strengthen your marriage, consider our Altered Marriage membership, where you get tools, videos, worksheets, connect with community, live Zoom conversations, Q&As, and all kinds of other fun stuff. Check that out in the description area below. All right, let's talk difficult conversations. Some people love them, some people run from them, but regardless what you think about them, every relationship that you get into will have to deal with difficult conversations. They are inevitable. And because they're inevitable, I think it makes sense to get better at how we handle difficult conversations. We've got to think about how we prepare for them, what we're doing in the midst of them, and then what we're doing on the way out of them in order to handle them well. So in this video, I want to talk about 8 tips for handling difficult conversations in hopes that we'll all get a little bit better at this. So tip number 1, if you're a person of faith, number 1 is always got to be pray. Listen, Luke 6:45 says that our mouth speaks whatever's in our heart. So if your heart's not in a good place and you show up for a difficult conversation, the words coming out of your mouth are already going to have you doomed. If you're not a person of faith, then maybe stop, meditate, the things that calm you down, the things that clear your mind, that relax your emotions a little bit before you step into a difficult conversation. You want to take care of those things so you can set yourself up well. Tip number 2 is be clear about the issue. You need to be clear on what you're coming into the conversation to talk about. What is the specific behavior or issue that you want to talk about? How is the specific behavior or issue impacting you in a negative way? And then what's the point when you leave? What are you expecting to have happen? So the idea behind being clear about the issue is if you cannot articulate in a few sentences what you're trying to talk about, the person you're talking with is going to be unclear. You may be bouncing all over the place with different issues, and it confuses what you're trying to talk about. So be clear about the issue. Tip number 3 is know your objective. What is the goal of the conversation? What do you hope to have come out of it? Most people go into it with, well, I just got to get this off my chest. They just need to hear a piece of my mind. That's not a good objective. That's you being selfish. You need to know what the goal is so that when you walk away, you know if you've accomplished it. What are you hoping for them to do? Are they in agreement with it? What support or accountability do you guys need to walk out whatever you came into agreement on? There needs to be an objective for the conversation. It can't just be to unload on the other person. Number 4 is adopt a learning mindset. You think you already know their motive, why it happened, what they're doing. They're out to get you. Listen, you may be wrong. Let's just assume that there's an outside chance that you could learn something new in the conversation. Go in with a learning mindset. Say, I want to understand some things. I want to learn more about this other person because that will increase connection and intimacy in the relationship. So adopt a learning mindset. Number 5 is manage your emotions. Listen, if you go in emotionally high and elevated, it's not going to go well. Our emotions always skew the facts. Our feelings will mess up the truth of the conversation we're having. So if you don't know how to manage your emotions, the conversation will not go well. That's part of why we need to breathe, relax, and go in with a little better mindset by managing our emotions. If your emotions start escalating, take a break, take a time out, and come back and revisit at another time. When emotions are escalated, the conversation will never go well. Number 6 is pick the right time and place for the conversation. Too many times we try to have a difficult conversation at the wrong time in the wrong place. You don't do that out in front of other people. You don't do it in front of your kids. You do it in private where there's not a whole lot of distractions. You need to do it at the right time. Listen, don't do it late at night when you're tired. Don't do it when you're hungry. Don't do it when somebody else is frustrated. Don't do it just in passing. If you're having a difficult conversation, you need to set up a time. Maybe even ask them, hey, when would you have time to sit down and talk about whatever issue it might be? You need to set up a time and a place that will make it more successful. Number 7 is know how to begin. Listen, the way you step into the conversation often determines the trajectory of that conversation. So if you need to have a difficult conversation, be direct and honest about it. Hey babe, I'd like to talk to you about XYZ. When would be a good time to do it? Don't be like, hey babe, want to meet for lunch, and then ambush them with this really difficult, heavy conversation. It's not going to go well. Give them time to think. Sometimes we don't want them to have time to think about it because then they can come up with their defense and all that kind of stuff, and we want to do a sneak attack. No, listen. Know how to begin the conversation. Hey babe, I would like to talk about how your drinking is impacting our relationship. I would like to talk about how your time out with friends is taking away from our time as a family, and that prioritization is hurting our family. Be specific and direct with what you're talking about and begin that way. Don't sneak attack them. It's probably not going to go well. And number 8 is prioritize the relationship. Listen, at the end of the day, hopefully you're in a marriage where you're living it for the long term. You're in this for the long term. Till death do us part were the vows that you shared. So if that's the case, then we do not need to die on every hill. We need to have difficult conversations. Sometimes they go well, sometimes they don't. If they don't, you can come back and revisit it another time. If you can't seem to have a good, difficult conversation, you can get a third party involved, get a mediator involved. But understand that this isn't the end of the world, this conversation. You don't need to die on this hill. This isn't the thing that you need to fight tooth and nail for. Remember, at the end of the day, we want to maintain a healthy relationship. So while we need to have these conversations to grow our relationship and to move past some issues that are hurting us, we also have to understand that at the end, when I walk away, I want to be maintaining a healthy relationship, which means I'm not going to cut and hit below the belt. I'm not going to say things that I can't ever take back. I'm not going to cause so much damage in a difficult conversation that it takes us months to recover from it. I'm going to prioritize the relationship even in the midst of a difficult conversation. So there's 8 tips that hopefully you can apply in your difficult conversations to help manage them a little better. I'd love to hear some things maybe you do in difficult conversations that have worked for you guys so we can all learn from one another. If you need a place to work on your relationship, consider our Altered Marriage membership. And until next time, I'll see you right back here on Relation Shots.